to episode 9, link number 9 of our ever-growing chain. And today, Jack, we've finally, with Kurt Russell, escaped from the 80s. Where did we end up?
So, as are the rules, I had to pick a movie that was connected via an actor from the last movie. Last episode we discussed was Carl's choice, which was Adrian Barbeau in John Carpenter's Escape from New York, an absolute mastery of cinema and thoroughly enjoyed. And usually I pick something to throw Carl off a bit and I don't go for the obvious choice, but I just couldn't. It was too obvious of a choice, and I absolutely love this actor. Like, he's definitely in my top 5 for sure. So for this episode, I picked Kurt Russell in S. Craig Zala's Bo and Tomahawk. And the reason I did that, not only because I love this movie, but more because I wanted to show the evolution of Kurt Russell and how he's been about since, he's a Disney child. He was around in the 60s, and he's just been constantly busting out banger after banger, and he's always absolutely smashed it in the world of cinema. So we're going to touch on that as well. But before that, as are the rules, we usually do a bit of housekeeping, discuss what we've been watching. However, it's been a while since me and Carl have spoke. It's been a while since I've seen Carl, but he's actually had a little trip recently, and I'm going to let him take it away from here.
I thought I'd showcase my my new purchase here, which is a bird with the crystal plumage T-shirt, because I went to Rome just on a short trip with my wife, and while I was there, I thought I found out about Profondo Rosso, the shop owned by Dario Argento and Luigi Cozzi. And
so jealous.
I actually didn't know this place existed. As soon as I found out, it became like a mini pilgrimage for me.
Yeah.
I had an afternoon free, and I wandered off there, and brilliant. Had a great time. It's not massive. It's like a little museum, Argento museum underneath the shop, absolutely packed to the rafters with just cool horror stuff. And amazing selection of Argento T-shirts. Basically, anybody into horror, highly recommend you go. The museum's got like some cool little just bits of props and things from some of his movies. It's kind of almost like a series of dioramas of some of his films with props there. So there's like the weird little mutant kid from Phenomena, half a torso from the opening of the opera, a demon from Demons that he produced. Really cool little place. €5. I mean, it was great.
That's a steal. That's ridiculous. Oh my God, so jealous.
So, let's. Jack, you also have been off on your travels. Did you have any? You've been on your stag do. So, did you have any hangover type adventures? No Mike Tysons and Tigers to mention.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Except everything you showed on Instagram.
Except all the PG stuff. You can head over to my personal socials and see all the PG stuff that managed to filter through. But thoroughly good time, and I'm about to be off the market as well.
Big Vegas fan. So 100% with you, buddy. Cool. So should we get cracking? Let's do our what we've been watching. And I think let's dive straight in with one that we've both seen that's literally just come out. So hot off the press, and that is Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17. So Jack, do you want to lead us in on this one?
So yes, we both went to see Mickey 17, not together, but a bit about it. Based on Edward Ashton's Mickey 7, it's sort of like a deep space adventure, but being Bong Joon-ho, it's darkly comedic and politically charged as well.
Hi, Mickey. Are you experiencing any vertigo?
I guess I am feeling a little dizzy.
Oh, wow! Did you see that?
I wouldn't be surprised if you're thinking at this point, what have I done?
I mean, first thoughts for me, brief first thoughts for me. I had a very good time. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's mad how more people aren't talking about it. I don't know if that'll be the case by the time this comes out, but I haven't seen a lot of people I don't know what you've seen, Carl, but I haven't seen a lot of like reviews coming out. I haven't seen a lot of socials posting about this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed, but let's go over to you.
I think I've seen a few, like Kermode, and things like that.
Not in abundance, though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's but it's like everything. I think films are just coming and going, aren't they? I mean, people barely sort of talk about it unless you seek it out. But I think. I'm a big Bong Joon-ho fan. I've loved everything I've seen. I think of mine, I'd say Snowpiercer is probably my favourite. But I've watched everything since The Host. I haven't seen his ones he did before that. But effectively, this was a really, it was just a great film, brilliant sci-fi film, funny, really odd. I'm amazed they spent the money they did on it. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's and it's got a great.
What was the budget?
Well, I've heard it's certainly 9 figures. So so it was over 100 million, and I don't know what they but that for a film like
gorgeous.
This,
everything top to bottom.
But a very kind of unusually an unusual film for a studio to spend that much money on. It definitely feels like you've won an Oscar, have a massive fat paycheck. And he just made what he wanted to make. And I think what was really fascinating was it felt like a greatest hits of all the other movies he's made, but with a lot of original stuff in there as well. Because it had like the snow from Snowpiercer, it had like the cute creatures from, or like intelligent animals from Okja, the kind of tentacles of The Host. It was it felt like there was lots of things that are very common themes, and the social, like you say, the social angle, the political angle, that's always there in his work, and it was very there. Loved it. I thought it was really entertaining time.
So for those that don't, basically a bit about the plot without spoiling, because I definitely recommend people go see this. It's essentially a bit of a waste of space introvert that is trying to escape a loan shark, and the only way to do that is to get off Earth entirely. But unfortunately for him, he's not the most skilled of individuals, so all he's qualified to be is what's known as an expendable. An expendable is basically someone that gets put forward on these pretty much like 99% of the time fatal missions to further the research of the space colony that he's part of. So he gets put on these fatal missions, meets his demise, and gets cloned through this human printer over and over again, and he keeps getting sent out on these missions. And like I say, it's best thing about it is the dark comedic aspects, because it just makes it an absolute joy to watch this poor man getting killed over and over again.
Yeah, especially that opening. I mean, because the opening just throws you straight in, and then you get this very long prologue, which basically like pre-credits prologue, which is it must be about 20-30 minutes of the movie, and you get to see that whole thing, like the Expendables thing, play out of, and that's some of my favorite stuff in the movie is the stuff with the printer.
Sequences are hilarious, especially when you get to put the bench under him. It's just absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, and I mean, literally, he's coming out like a piece of paper, isn't he?
Yeah,
like just out of the printer, and there's like they forget to put the tray there, and he just thumps out. it's
because
really
like he is expendable. It's like it's literally in the most literal sense. That's why he's called that. They could not give a shit about him in the slightest, to be fair.
No. In a way, it almost felt like he's almost like indentured servitude or a slave, because he got absolutely no worth to them. They're just happy to just do whatever. Except you can tell there's quite a few people that are quite fond of him, and he actually forms a very good relationship for that early part, which then plays into kind of what happens later. I mean, it's without giving too much away. I guess it's. It takes some of the elements of Moon. I thought, there was when I first read the synopsis, I was like, sounds like Moon, and that some of that stuff does kind of come into it, but there is way more kind of world building, big, expansive, epic kind of plot, and lots of politics. What did you, without giving too much, I guess, away, what did you think of the power couple?
On the nose nod. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed Mark Ruffalo. It was kind of like, you know exactly what they're doing. They said, Bong said himself that that character, Mark Ruffalo's character, was not based on anyone in particular. But whether or not he based it on anyone in particular, I have no doubt that Mark Ruffalo drew that performance from somewhere. To go so far as the underbite it's like you know what I mean. But I thoroughly enjoyed them. But the full review for this is out now. jackedinmovies.com. You can head over and see my full in-depth critique. But that was the reason that it got dragged down to a 3.5 out of 5 for me, because I thought that was a bit on the nose, and usually it's quite subtle. Yeah, but I thought that was like, and it's not even a bad thing. Like, if this movie had come out perhaps like earlier this year, like, I would have been probably fine with it. But it's because I'm seeing so much of this particular individual left, right, and center on the news all the time that this movie came out. I watched it. I was like, I'm a bit bored of seeing interpretations and jokes about him now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think, but I think there's a whole kind of, it's almost like an entire sort of, there's a certain, even if it's not just one individual, certain sort of type of individual is very much playing into that performances now. And I think there's no way he wasn't focused on that. But I thought what was really interesting about it was it probably felt for me the most, when you've seen like the Korean films he's made and then the American films he's made, the American ones still felt like Korean films, but I think it was always like a little bit more. They definitely felt slightly more Hollywood as well. This one, I don't think particularly feels very Hollywood. This feels to me like a Korean movie through.
I mean, the exact performances.
Because one of the things that they do in a lot of Korean cinema is they're quite unrestrained in Asian cinema with certain performances. You know, they will push it up to 11 when. Without a second's thought, and that's not. I think Hollywood, when that tends to happen, it doesn't work. But in this, they were really unrestrained, and it was riding the line between like. I was almost irritated. I think Toni Collette particularly, I found a bit grating, if I'm honest. But it didn't ruin it for me. It was just I found her performance was like, if she'd gone up one more notch, I'd have been like,
yeah. I know what you mean. It was. I made the exact same comment in my review that it's the best thing about it is it doesn't follow the rules of sort of Western cinema. It does go left at the traffic lights on numerous occasions. A lot of people's gripes was that there was too much going on, but for me that was a strength. I absolutely loved all the different moving parts that were happening all the time.
I think that's the thing that will be really interesting with this. I haven't seen the box office numbers, but I don't know if people are going to this in the sense of if people have seen and are familiar with Korean cinema, this won't feel that unusual. But that sort of genre hopping, go left and then right, obviously there was loads of that in Parasite. So anybody that kind of went to this because they liked Parasite will probably sort of pick up on that. But I think if somebody's just going to this thinking, oh, it's just a big sci-fi drama, or sci-fi comedy or whatever, they might just feel really confused about kind of the way it is because that's the thing I love about Korean cinema. They are unbound by like the rules of genre. It doesn't matter. It'll be a comedy, horror, thriller, then it back to a comedy, then it's something else, and then it's political drama, and then it's something else, all in the space of 3 hours, and this was very much in that route, in that vein. I think there was some great sci-fi stuff. There was some really good comedy. There were so many plot lines that were just shooting out left, right, and centre. And lots of characters got really good sub storylines. I thought Stephen Yeun was amazing in it. I really liked him in that. I thought he was
such a swine, but in the best possible way.
No, I'm sure you're used to it by now, but what's it feel like to die?
Why don't you guys do rock, paper, scissors, and then we'll just shoot the loser.
But,
what were your thoughts on the man front and center, Robert Pattinson? How did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, again, not an actor I've seen a lot of stuff, if I'm honest. I never watched Twilight or any of that shit. So basically, I went into this thinking of him as this sort of, he's a bit of a poster boy pinup or whatever, and he was absolutely unrecognizable as that. He's almost like the Village Idiot performance, isn't it? I mean, it's like bordering on like, he's very simple, and I think, but then also. This is where the moon bit comes in, he also gets to play other roles because you see all these other versions of him that have happened. To start with, I thought the accent, I was a bit like, what's he doing? Where's he going with this? But actually, by 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the film, you're just on board. And I
got an interesting fact about the accent, actually, because I watched an interview and everyone was like, where did it come from, sort of thing. And he said he based it on Steve-O from Jackass.
And now I'm going to tell you about the 10 most horrifically painful stunts I ever did. Let's go.
He finds Steve-O intriguing, a man that for no rhyme or reason keeps putting himself in harm's way. And he said that inspired his interpretation of Mickey Barnes.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that's brilliant. I love stories like that. It just goes to show where like the processes of the actors come from. You know, because that I never would have thought of that for a second.
You can hear it.
Hold on, I can see that
for sure. The Twilight thing. It's like I've seen him in a ton since then. I mean, even he's like sort of disowned the Twilight franchise. He makes fun of it more than anyone else. But everything outside of that, I urge people to go and watch because fuck me, he is such a good actor. Like I first got turned on to him, not in that way, bit in that way. In Good Time, and that is a movie. If you've seen Uncut Gems, same guy that did that, and it's one of those movies that's non-stop, like from start to finish. It's just anxiety-inducing, and that's what got him the gig as Batman, because it was this force to be reckoned with of a guy that just never stopped. So as soon as I saw him in being in Mickey 17, I was like, this guy's a safe pair of hands. Like he knows exactly what he's doing. Absolutely tremendous actor.
Yeah, I think I definitely need to start seeking some more of his stuff out. I still haven't got around to watching the Batman, and because it's just so long, and
it is
3 hours of Batman film. I was just like, I'm waiting for that perfect moment. You know,
treat it like a series, treat it like a thriller series, and just watch them in hour segments.
Yeah, miniseries. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I'd say the only issues I had were, apart from some of it being a bit over the top, were just probably it was too long. But that's pretty standard for a Korean film, 3 hours, to nearly 3 hours. But I felt in this instance, it by the end I was going, I'm happy for this to end. This could have ended half an hour ago. You know, I mean, for me it was a 4, but that's more probably on the filmmaking technical side of it. I loved it.
It looks absolutely gorgeous. I couldn't fault it in the slightest. Aesthetic wise, I feel like deep space movies, they always bring their own style. Like you've got Event Horizon, which was very gothic, like Hellraiser in space, and we've spoke about this before. Like each one of the Alien movies brings a different look. Yeah. I was trying to pinpoint the aesthetic for Mickey 17. And I was like, I don't really like doing that too much because it does a disservice of the director's vision. But in terms of the way the shit looked and everything like that, I almost felt a bit Red Dwarf-esque in terms of its look. But that was
and the Deep Space Mission kind of fits that quite well, doesn't it? I think that's really interesting. I mean, it felt very now. It felt very like real, you know, like Interstellar and things like that. It felt like sci-fi movies have started getting to this point where it's almost like I don't know if it's just because as technology is moving on, the more outlandish stuff starts to feel a bit silly unless it's in like Star Wars, you know. So whenever it's anything that's real people from Earth, it seems like they go real hardcore on the science now, and everything just feels very gritty. So for me, it felt a bit like, you know, a bit like James Cameron's ships, or or like, you know, Alien or whatever. It felt like very hard metal, sort of industrial.
There's so much going on in the background as well, like that it never really hits on, and I feel like again that's it going left at the traffic lights. Like there's robots in the background that just let themselves up a flight of stairs, and it's just like, oh, it has that function. There's like these little things constantly happening in the background, and I love that they don't comment on it.
Yeah,
it's just, here it is, let's move on. And I love that. It just makes you, it makes you use your imagination of how this world works. Talking of Korean cinema, let's segue on to your next.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, one of the reasons I was so excited for Mickey 17 is I'm a massive fan of Korean cinema. A lot of like big directors have come out of that scene, you know, for the last 20 years. I think they've been making some of the best cinema easily for the last 2 decades. I mean, some of my favourite films I've seen in the last 20 years are from Korea. But this one I felt had been underlooked. And I watched it on a plane when it came out in 2018. It's on Shudder. And I saw it the other day and I was like, I need to rewatch that film because I loved it. It's like sometimes there's that plane thing where, you know, when you watch a film, it's always like 1 star better on a plane. So I was like, is this as good as I remember? And then I pulled it up. And it's got a review score, considering it's probably been reviewed by quite a few people on Shudder by now, of 5 out of 5. And nobody ever talks about this movie. Nobody talks about it when it came out. But it is a Korean period monster comedy, horror, action, martial arts, thriller, political drama. And it's called Monstrum. Have you seen Monstrum, Jack?
I have not. So tell me more.
Monstrum, it's just brilliant. I mean, as we've said about genre hopping, this is a perfect example. It is basically, I suppose, at its most basic, it's a political drama set in 17th century Korean court, combined with a kaiju movie.
Right,
so that's the basic. There is the monstrum of the title, and there is this whole sort of political machination stuff going on. But within that, you basically get like a whole range of different sort of feels of different tones. But it tells this really coherent story, and it effectively centers on there was a big rebellion. Which I've forgotten the name of, but basically big rebellion. Lots and lots of people get killed, and they get sort of thrown into this ravine. And then it jumps ahead sort of 20 years later. A girl gets saved from the pile of dead bodies, basically, by one of the soldiers. And then jumps ahead 20 years later. You sort of catch up with what's happened. This girl has grown up with her. Basically, he's become a kind of surrogate dad. And it turns out that it starts off, and this is one of the great things I love about Korean cinema. There's him and his friend and the daughter. They're a bit sort of schlubby. They're kind of trying to survive. They're doing fishing and sort of odd jobs and all this sort of stuff to try and survive, work in the land. But they're kind of comedy characters. They're played as like bumbling buffoons. But then it turns out that basically they're both absolute like soldier badasses. And when they get called into action, all the buffoonery stops and they kick ass like very best. And it's so good, so enjoyable. I'm not familiar with the work of the director, whose name I'm going to butcher this. So it's Jung Ho Hu. And he, I haven't seen whether he's done anything since or before. This is the only thing I know I've seen of his. But yeah, really entertaining. I won't give too much away because the more you talk about it, the more I'll just ruin it.
여기가 물개의 둥지인 것 같습니다. 물개가 실로 있단 말이니.
But it's on Shudder. Massive recommend. Yeah, it seems to be extremely popular on Shudder, and I'm not surprised. But I just heard nobody talking about it, so I like using this podcast to shine a light on films, that I've enjoyed that I don't feel get talked about enough. And Monstrum. It is.
There you go.
Yeah, it's
fans of kaiju, all that. Yep, get involved.
Fun 2.5 hours. Yeah,
excellent stuff. I'm going to add that to my list for sure.
So, Jack, over to you.
We're going to keep this light. Let's make it a celebration discussion. But in recent weeks, when we recorded this, it'll be longer when this comes out. Recently found out about the passing of an absolute veteran of an actor, Oscar winner Gene Hackman. To, I guess you could say, commemorate his memory, I busted out one of my favorite performances of all time. My first ever introduction to the man was via Lex Luthor in Superman 1978. So it's been a bit of a while. I sort of dart between the ones that I want to watch every now and again. So I rewatched Superman 78, and it's such a joy to watch, really. Especially with James Gunn's Superman coming out, which, despite all the backlash, looks like it's going to be very vibrant, like the Christopher Reeve universe, which I'm very excited about. Red Trunks are back. I'm actually one of the people that's all for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Superman.
Yeah, it is Superman, right? Like I say, bright and vibrant. But normally when I talk about this movie, I fixate on Superman and what Christopher Reeve brought to the role. But like I say, I was watching it in memory of Gene Hackman, so I kind of rewatched it to appreciate how much of an amazing actor he was. He was top billed, so he was already an established actor when he got it. He was billed, under Marlon Brando, but above Christopher Reeve, and there's a reason for that. He was an absolutely brilliant Luthor because here is a person playing a human being without any super capabilities, which is on the same level. He's not intimidated by Superman. He's the neck and neck, and that comes across in every inch of his performance. I mean, I'm presuming you've seen it, Carl.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, I love his Lex Luthor. He's not remotely close to Lex Luthor from the comics or anything, but I think I love his performance of it. I love his take on it, and really enjoyable.
For sure.
And actually, possibly, I don't know. Is it heresy to say I actually maybe even prefer his performance a slightly bit more in Superman 2 because he just goes really to town on it, you know?
It's, I guess, what's come out since, obviously, is the numerous comic books and the numerous animated series, and he's gotten darker and darker and more like an evil genius. I guess when Superman 78 came out, it was based on the old school comics where I think Kevin Smith said it himself, where Lex Luthor was more of a huckster, and he was sort of like, oh, well, we've got to buy more land. We're going to buy land. And that's his like gimmick in this, right? That he's going to buy up all the land and then destroy the coast. And then everyone will be left with, can't remember the name. All that's coming to mind right now is Otisburg, which his henchman like aptly names one of the towns. He's like, Otisburg. But it's his performance in that, like I say, he's the only man that can like be an absolute evil genius in a 3-piece suit with flared trousers, and he just totally owns it. Like I say, he's and there's a reason when people think about him as the go-to performance, and especially in Superman 2 as well. Like you say, he just goes for it. He's already established, but he's the main antagonist of the first one, and he just, like I say, he absolutely nails every scene that he's in.
There's some really good interplay between him and Ned Beatty as well. I think that really works. That whole henchman kind of henchman and boss kind of routine is like so enjoyable. And I think in many ways, like they set that template for loads, like all those kind of buddy things or bad guys or routines you saw in like 80s and 90s, and
absolutely,
I think a lot of them owe a lot to that Ned Beatty sort of Gene Hackman duo in those films. It was really really good. And I mean, I think you're right. That was probably my entrance to Gene Hackman as well. You know, I think because I must have seen that, you know, when not long after it first came out, and it was. He's just an amazing actor. Ever so sad, but I mean, I guess, you know, 95, he has such a body of work. When you look at some of the classic, I mean, and it particularly felt like in the 90s, like he just hit some absolute bangers in the 90s.
Absolutely.
For me, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I'm hoping this weekend I'm going to try and sit down and watch Unforgiven, because that for me was probably his best role. And
good choice, very good choice.
But yeah, French Connection, all those films, great, absolute legend. You know?
Absolutely, like Birdcage as well. That's another favourite of mine. Like, not enough people think of the Birdcage and the thing about Nathan Lane and Robin Williams, but my God, Gene Hackman is the sort of homophobic, slightly racist senator, but he plays it so straight, where he's not like putting it on. It's like, no, that people like that exist, and he just absolutely smashes it. Yeah. Just a very nuanced, and I think even at the time when because I remember he bowed out shortly after Royal Tenenbaums, which is a film I don't like, but he definitely put effort into it. But he was like, he wasn't like a one-note actor, you know. He was very versatile, and I think really everything I've read about him since he died was like he just appreciated his craft so much. Yeah. And it was that kind of put him off, actually. He hated filmmaking. He hated a lot of the stuff around it, makeup and all that stuff. He just didn't like any of that. He just wanted to act. He just enjoyed the craft. Yeah.
Big loss.
Absolutely.
What a body of work to look back on. So yeah, Superman, great choice.
Brilliant stuff. Gone but not forgotten. Like I say, get involved in some Gene Hackman cinematic adventures, because there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, and if anybody's got a favourite Gene Hackman film, let us know. Because
absolutely.
I'm hoping at some point, this chain must find its way to Gene Hackman. It must.
It definitely.
And when it does, I'd be amazed if we don't pick him. Yeah, that'll be a definite conversation I'd like to have. Right, so welcome back from the break, and now we're going to get into our featured review. So as we said, like the chain's taken us now from Escape to New York. We've escaped into the modern day. I think this is our first, am I right in saying this is our first film post 2010? Because we did Planet Terror. Yeah, maybe. It's one most recent one. You said escape into the modern day, and I was like, the hell you on about? We're talking about a Western, but you meant when it was... But yeah, so we're sort of bringing us into to the world of modern cinema, something where I can't just sit and go, I saw this as a young lad. So this is going to be an interesting chat, and I think, we've both seen it, and so that film was Bone Tomahawk.
Lean back.
Shit right there.
Bracing. This is going to penetrate.
Jack, you sort of explained at the beginning why we picked this one. So do you want to just give a quick synopsis what that's about, and give us your thoughts on those sort of overall thoughts before we dive into my 3 lines?
Yeah. Absolutely. Today we're discussing S. Craig Zala's Bone Tomahawk, and for anyone that's not in the know, it's essentially a Western, but it's crossed with a horror, and it's the first time I've ever seen that done. So it's a horror Western, but the plot itself is it's in this in the middle of nowhere town called Bright Hope, and you're following essentially the crux of the story is a man called Arthur, and then one unfortunate night where his wife Samantha, who's a bit of a medic, going out tending to some medical business, gets kidnapped by some, for lack of a better term, inbred savages. He finds out the next day and then wrangles together with the sheriff and a bunch of volunteers to go and save his wife. And then from there on, you get what I can only describe is this slow-paced, darkly comedic, white noise to the eyes. Like, I can't describe it. A white noise to all the senses. It's so pleasant to watch. When I first watched this, it was quite indescribable because when I first watched it, I couldn't compare it to anything else. You've got Kurt Russell, who's the sheriff, and as soon as I saw Kurt Russell was in it, I was just like, oh, he's like a sheriff like he is in Tombstone. And then he started acting, and I was just like, fuck me, this guy just belongs in Westerns, doesn't he? Like, he just totally embodies the whole Western vibe, and it's the dialogue in this is absolutely gorgeous. It fits in with the time period, but it's also, like I mentioned, it's comedic at times, and everything rolls off the tongue so nicely. And that's why I kind of say, like, it's white noise to the senses. I'm going to stop saying that now, but I love this movie so much. But it's funny, but it's also absolutely brutal in places. But what it does in between the brutality and the terror is so calming that you almost forget you're watching a horror. And I think that's when a lot of people describe the movie. They talk about a certain scene, and that's all they seem to remember, and it's because that calm diffuses everything outside the terror. But I love this movie so much. I love everything that this director's turned out. But yeah, no, those are my initial thoughts anyway.
Was it his debut?
Yeah, like apart from like a short, and that we'll probably touch on this, but I am, for anyone that's seen it, and if you haven't, get involved. I am baffled that for a no-name, basically at the time, handed over this script to some pretty big names, and they read it and saw certain bits and thought, I'm in. Like, that is I'm baffled. I'm glad they did.
Well, I think that's a testament, though, to the power of the script, because I think where lots of filmmakers do their first film as a horror, they do. It's an easy genre to sort of get into. A lot of the time, those scripts aren't necessarily great. And a lot of horror films suffer from, great visuals, lack of character. I think that's fair to say, right? I mean, a lot of horror stuff. I love horror, but it's like there's a lot of films out there where the characters so disposable. But what's the genius about this film is he just properly takes the time, and that'll lead into my point one actually in a minute. But basically, he takes the time to make you care about these people. Like it really does take its time, and because that you are so on board with them and you like them when the horror stuff happens again, which is there at the beginning, then it's forgotten for a very long time. But when it does happen, my God, like it's brutal, and it is and it's truly horrifying because it's very unglamorous. It's very unglamorous, and I think I'll cover this in more detail. So let's go into my points, because I think we're both on the same page with regards to that. I had heard a lot of buzz about this. I remember when it came out, there was a lot of talk. I think it had done incredibly well at festivals. Mm-hmm. It was on all the horror websites. Everyone was raving about this film. So, and the fact that Kurt Russell was in this kind of otherwise low budget film, it's got a very good cast.
Yeah.
For a low budget first time director, so they must have they could all see, I think, what this was going to be, and it's really interesting. I haven't actually seen anything since, which because he's done what, Dragged Over Concrete, isn't it? And
I've seen pretty much because of this movie, I made a point of keeping my eye open for whatever was going to turn out next. So the one that came after this was Brawl in Cell Block 99. I had the pleasure of watching that at TIFF when I used to live in Toronto. So the director and Vince Vaughn were both there. Then I watched that, blew me away again, and I was just like, right, this guy's just knocking out of the park on every release. And then after that, I was Dragged Across Concrete, and I made a point of watching that as soon as it came out, and I've never been disappointed by him yet. There you go.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I need to get in on the action on those two films, because they've been on my watch list since they came out.
He's got a style.
Yeah,
he's got slow pacing and dark humor to his strength. Just runs through because he's never done a period piece since, but he's got you can tell you're watching a Craig Zahler movie.
So let's dive in then. So my first point is exactly what you said. It's the characters, it's the banter. I basically said brilliant banter, and I think that's probably this. But I think that's not sort of narrowing it down too much. For me, the characters make this movie. They are such a fantastically interesting bunch, brilliantly acted, and I've got to say, there's two standouts. In fact, they're all good. They're all good.
Yeah.
And I think, it's almost like a testament to how great the script is that probably the least interesting of them is actually the main protagonist, which is Patrick Wilson's character, and yet he is actually still a really interesting character. It's just I think he is possibly the least interesting of the four that go out on this posse. Basically, they form this posse and they head out.
I don't know if it's the right time to do it. Well, on the note of Patrick Wilson's character, I completely agree. Like every bit of the character, he's very good at establishing characters and what they're about. And I noticed this when I first watched it. It's the opening scene that Patrick Wilson's Arthur's established. And he does this in all of his movies. He's very good at establishing exactly what someone's like and their personality traits straight away. And if you remember, when you first see Patrick Wilson, he's in bed with his wife, and he's suffered an injury, and having relations is quite painful. But he's on the bottom, and he looks to her, and he's like, shift over sort of thing, and he goes on top, and she's like, but doesn't it hurt? He's like, nah, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. But that's not like a sort of meaning like a sexist thing. That's mainly him saying he's looking out for her, I'm the man, I'll look after you. And that sets up what will come next, that nothing will stop him from going to her, sort of thing.
I feel they established their relationship really well in very little screen time. You get the impression they haven't been married very long. They're very in love. I think they're quite a religious couple. You get the sense, because he prays a lot throughout the film, and there's a lot of that sort of element to it. He's a good Christian man. She's a good Christian woman. They're out there on the frontier. They're probably working hard to sort of build a life. And there's this lovely thing about the letter he sends her, and she wants him to read a poem. She calls it a poem. And I love that scene where he does read it out when she's not there, and he's just like, it's not. But I thought they set them up really, really quickly, and they do that actually with all the characters. All the characters are established really, really quickly and really, really well, just through simple bits of dialogue. You find out very quickly Richard Jenkins' wife has died. You find out that he's the deputy, and he's obviously been through a lot. He's obviously a bit doddery. He's you almost get the impression he's maybe going slightly senile. He's just I don't know if he's just simple or senile, but he's very.
I went the simple route just for the simple fact of that. And once again, in any other movie behind any other director, if someone was just sitting at a table and having corn chowder, it would be so boring. But it is so much fun to watch, because at first he's just well, the tea smells awful, and he's just well, it's not tea. And he's like, oh, that explains it. And then he's like, it tastes like corn. He's like, it's corn chowder. He's like, all the pieces are starting to add together.
Yeah.
And it sets up how thick he is, but it's so much fun.
There's so many moments in the movie, pretty much all my favourite moments that aren't the horror bits. involve Richard Jenkins. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's an absolute revelation in this movie.
Oscar worthy. I
I
forgot he was in it.
And I remembered going back into it for a second viewing. I remembered thinking it first time around. Like, I remember the deputy being really good, like really entertaining. But he just like it's the mundane nature of the banter. He just talks about literally anything, and it just pops into his head and he just says it.
Yeah.
But it's so true to life. He's so believable because everyone who knows these people, you have conversations where stuff just pops in your head and you just have a chat about it. It's absolutely.
How do you read a book in the bath?
Yeah, Like when they're talking about it, he doesn't read a book because he doesn't want to get the pages wet.
Gets the pages wet.
Just get a stand, and they're just lying there having this conversation, trying to get to sleep. So I thought, the interplay with him and Kurt Russell, just wonderful. I thought their relationship's so good.
I forgot the spoons. You think you could drink this without burning your mouth?
Oh, I like challenges.
Oh boy, that smells good. Now that I know it's not supposed to be tea. You need to make sure you have a couple of good meals every day. Can't have my backup deputy pass out because he forgot to eat.
No, sir, that'd be shameful.
And then you've got like almost the complete opposite. An actor who I gotta be honest, I loved Lost, massive Lost fan. I was never a big fan of Jack. Matthew Fox was fine as Jack because it served the story in Lost.
Yeah.
But I was never a massive fan of him as an actor. I think, again, this is a career best performance. Like, I doubt he'll ever act better than this. Brooder is such a fascinating character because he manages to take a guy who is like, I wrote down a note where I said he's a bit like Doc, what's his name from Tombstone? If he was sober, he's got that gentleman. He's wearing the waistcoat. He's got the bowler hat. He's very fast on the draw. Deadly and not afraid to say he's deadly, but he is a horrible kind of bigot. But that kind of also gets explained. You can understand where his hatred comes from because like some bad shit happened to his family when he was young, and so but he's done some awful stuff. But at the same time, he's a gentleman. He looks out for everybody. So you kind of dislike him, but he's not he's not a bad guy. He's not like, he's that dickhead in the bunch that is going to get killed, and I can't wait to see him die. Like, there's always that in a horror movie. There's that the dickhead character that
it does a weird thing.
Killing.
It kind of like if it's, and he's done this before. He did it in Dragged Across Concrete. But there's these certain individuals that he introduces to you, and if you found out their values, you wouldn't want to know them. But Brooder in this is brilliant because he has values that I don't relate to mine at all. But at the same time, it's like, fuck, like I would want him on this trip.
Yeah.
If I was going to save my wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But the thing is, like I say, he could have just been taken along as the muscle, been a complete knob for the entire movie. You hate him, he gets killed, you go, oh, great, he had it coming. But there's none of that. There's none of that. When, we're going full spoilers, so when he actually dies, it's heartbreaking. And he's not a good man, but he didn't deserve to die like that. It's fucking horrific. And it's just like, he goes out in such a kind of quick, brutal way for this guy who you think is going to be like a real asset, and he just his death is meaningless, like utterly meaningless.
It's brilliant because there's these surprises that come out of nowhere, and then they sort of take that time after the surprise and they just keep going. But he goes out in a tremendous fashion, the way that his character has been throughout, in that, well, he loses his hand really, and and they're like, well, we can save you, and he's like, nah, I'm far too vain to live as a cripple.
Yeah,
and it's just a brilliant line. But like I say, this from head to toe,
this movie, through and through. Yeah,
so many good lines of dialogue.
Just a very, very narcissistic man, basically, but knows he's good, and has every right to know that because you see how deadly he is at various points. I think one of my favorite moments in the film during that whole sequence where they're riding to the hills is where he's putting out the wire and he's explaining why he's putting out the wire.
Are any of you somnambulous?
That's private.
Me and sleepwalk.
Oh, no, I don't. Me neither.
No. Good. Sleep with your guns nearby, and you shoot anything that rings a bell.
Could be an innocent animal, somebody lost.
Our horses are hobbled. Any animal that comes at us is a predator. And any person that approaches a camp in the dark without identifying themselves is a criminal or a savage. You hear it jingle, point your gun and shoot.
And then you see this beautiful static shot of them all just lying asleep, and you just hear ding-a-ling-a-ling, and he just sits up and shoots. And it's not even a moment; he just bang, and all you hear is this like animal whimpering off camera. And I just thought that summed his character up brilliantly, So So that's point number one. I mean, how do you feel about the characters? I mean,
like I say, the characters from head to like he's. The characters are brilliant in their own right, like I say, their script alone. But you see it's almost the casting decisions he makes that you couldn't picture anyone else in these roles. I think like it goes hand in hand. So the characters go hand in hand with his casting choices, and that's how he delivers the amazing works of art that he does. But yeah, like I say, Bruder, like he's not someone that I would mix with, but like you just love the character so much. There was a lot of, like I say, he's a bit of a, I wouldn't say a sociopath. He's very unforgiving for a lot of people, and he's good at what he does. The emotional scene that you do see from him is when he has to kill his only friend, which is the horse. And there was it was a slow scene. The tracking shot that followed him all the way to the horse, absolutely heartbreaking. Because you don't really see it, all you're following really is him. So that adds a lot to the character rather than what's going on around them.
Yeah, and can I just say on that as well, I think what I loved about that scene is not only brilliant character work from Matthew Fox, but I think the way they set him up, he is so confident in his ability and he is deadly, and you definitely see that. But this is why the approach to this movie is so good, is that in any other movie, he wouldn't go through the scene where he has to kill his horse, because basically he nearly dies, and it's from his own overconfidence. He basically leads them away from that, where he kills those two Mexican bandits, but they basically are bandits. He's right. He shoots them, but he shoots them cold-bloodedly. I mean, that is a really shocking moment. And again, beautifully shot, but kind of, he just guns them down, throw your weapons down. As they're doing it, he just shoots them. And like, in a lot of movies, that would immediately make him the bad guy. But when he explains what's going on, you sort of go like, bit of a dick move, but maybe he's right. But he is literally like, if we get out of here now, then, they are going to attack here. So let's get out of here. But actually, when Patrick Wilson wakes up in the middle of the night, it's Bruder that they are literally trying to stab. Yeah. He's being stabbed literally in his sleep. And he's not as good as he thinks he is. I think, in a lot of movies, the guy that badass, nobody would ever get near him, to stab him.
Get the drop on him. He's not invincible. He's not this superhuman sort of.
That's it.
Yeah. But like he redeems himself with a bit of knowledge, because he gets up and straight away he's like, "There's no way my horse would let someone ride us. Just too loyal," sort of thing. And it's like, oh shit, unfortunately, he was right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's gone through a lot of trauma, because he's been stabbed and then like his horse dies, and so it's like, they give an awful lot of screen time to the side characters, all having their moments, which a lot of directors just wouldn't do that. You just focus on like Patrick Wilson or Kurt Russell, and I think they are so well fleshed out that a moment like that scene with the horse just hits really hard, because you feel it. This is a man who loves his horse. He loves his possessions. He loves how he looks. He loves his horse. He's got the best horse. It's like, you lose something like that, it's losing your best friend. And it's
and the stuff the little clips that he comes out with as well. It's kind of like, it's almost reminding you that he is a dick, but it's you're met with such a quandary in that it's like, oh, you're really good at what you do, and it's kind of like, I want you to succeed because of the mission that you're on. I want you to succeed, but at the same time, you deliver like the lines like having it like, I'll try my best not to like say any flirtatious comments with your wife when if I get there first.
Yeah,
you just bring someone. It's just like,
no, he's just a bit of a cad, isn't he? I mean, he's a bit of a cad. He's a cad.
That is the best way to describe him. He's a bit of a cad.
Yeah.
I mean, moving on from Bruder, just because I could talk about that character all day. Like, like he deserves his own spin-off. But we're going to delve more into Kurt Russell at the back end of this episode. Patrick Wilson, like we said, he's not the most interesting character in this. So I'll make the next obvious one. And I forgot that he was in this, and that's not me saying he's forgetful. That's me forgetting that, like, of how good his performance was, unlike anything I've ever seen him do before. And that is Richard Jenkins as Chicory. So I've seen this movie a couple of times, only a couple, but I always remember the ditzy, like, sidekick, the ditzy deputy sheriff. And I just always remembered it being this ditzy old man. And then I watched it, and then I think I brought up the IMDb to get prepped for this episode, and I was just like, who's Jenkins in this? And then I watched, I was like, no. And then as soon as he popped up, I was like, holy shit. And even when you're watching him in the role, he's still unrecognizable. Like, it's got his face, but his mannerisms and the head behind these, like, glasses and this beard and this facade, this ditzy facade and I'm just like, why didn't he get I'll need to look into this after the fact of what won the Oscar that year for Best Supporting Actor, but he deserved, like, horrors are always snubbed anyway, but my God, he deserved, like, that as a career best for him. Like, so good. What do you think?
Yeah, like I said before, I mean, I did favorite character in the movie by a long shot. I just think it's an absolutely wonderful, nuanced, funny, sort of like almost tragic, and yet kind of just lovable. Like, he's just the guy that everyone would look after because he's a bit, like you say, a bit simple, possibly, I think, going a bit, senile. Just maybe, he's gone through a lot with losing his wife and all that, but you just feel that, like, you just want to look after this guy, and everybody would be his friend because he's just so good natured. And in a way, like, I mean, he's just going along because he's the deputy and he wants to be a good deputy. You can tell he just wants to be a good man.
It's kind of like Kurt Russell's almost humor in him in a way, because, like, he could have told him to stay and he would have, but you can just see, like, he's happy to help, and it's just like, okay, you can, but, like, some of the saddest lines in this movie are delivered by Chicory. First one that comes to mind is when he gets called a dumb imbecile, and then he apologizes afterwards. He gets called a dumb imbecile by Patrick Wilson, and then he's like, sorry for yelling at you, and he's like, oh, that's all right, my wife used to call me a dumb imbecile, felt kind of nice.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, Jesus,
that's so nice. I think one of my favorite moments for him actually is in a moment of, like, absolute horror, but it's the I love how he takes on board. He doesn't understand. There's that moment. I mean, obviously, the moment that everyone talks about, and we'll get to. But after that has happened, and he says to Kurt Russell, "Why did you tell him? Are the cavalry really coming? Is this a backup plan?" And he's like, "No, I just thought if that was happening to me, that's what I'd want to hear." And then this horrible thing is happening to Kurt Russell, and he just starts yelling like,
I'll avenge you.
Like, he's just yelling what he thinks Kurt Russell wants to hear in that moment. And I just thought that just summed him up beautifully. That, like, he's that guy. He will do anything for anyone, and he understood the impact of that moment and what was about to happen to Kurt Russell. And
it's a horrendous. It's the cherry on top of a horrendous cake of a scene. Because, like I said, and we will get into it, the horrendous scene. But, like, it's like, how can this scene get any worse? And for me, it's when he says that line, like, I'll avenge you. It's just like, fuck, that's just like salt in the wound, or heated up flask in the wound in this case. But
very good. A bit that I had completely forgotten about, by the way. That is a moment. But so for me, I think part of the brilliance of this film is just the sheer amount of time it takes and the quality of the script and the acting. So it's the banter. So many great scenes. Like, this film could have gotten to the hills half an hour, 40 minutes earlier. That whole bit in some films would just be 10 minutes of montage, and then they'd be at the hills, and the rest of the movie would be all the stuff that happens when they meet the troglodytes. But actually, it just takes so long and takes so much time. He's obviously inspired, I reckon, by things like The Searchers and stuff like that. It's that kind of like men on a mission. The posse on the but it takes just a really, really patient approach.
Are you surprised? at my love for this movie, considering my disdain for Lord of the Rings and how much more.
Well, I figured, they're riding for most of it, and maybe you're okay with horses, Jack. Maybe you hate the bits where they lost their horses, and you're like bloody walking.
Oh, fucking walking, yeah.
Basically, moving on to point number 2. I think this ties in nicely actually to that whole sequence. So for me, and this is my technical side, coming out, but I absolutely love the cinematography of this film. I just think, but I think it's, for me, what I wrote the actual point is, it's not just the cinematography, it's the power of a still shot.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many shots in this film where the camera is absolutely locked off. And I think what I loved so much about watching this film is there's just beautiful moments where it takes its time. There's a lot happening in one single shot. Yeah. I think about like when they arrive at the barn and the stable boy's been killed, and they arrive and it's just a static and it's just a door. You don't know what's behind that door. You see them come in, and any other film would probably just have that as a series of cuts and various shots. But it's just show the wide. When they leave town on horseback, all the camping scenes where he sits up and shoots the hyena or whatever it was. All of these moments are just locked off single static camera, and it's beautiful. But what it means is that when the camera does move and the action is happening, it feels more urgent, like it just in the moment, because it's like life is quite slow. Normal life, well, I wish my bloody life was slow, but life generally isn't like just frantic action all the time. Yeah. So when cameras do that, that's not real life.
It's not for me. I'm a huge fan of a static or a long shot or a wide or like a single shot without various cuts, and that adds to, I guess, what I was trying to explain earlier about it's white noise for every sense. And I remember that Bond scene, and I was just like, this would feel Russian, but you almost feel like you're discovering the stable boy because you're following them slowly in, and then you're finding them, and it's not rushed and it's slow, but it's not boring. And I'm always trying to describe that to people when I'm like, Zola's work is slow paced, but it's never boring. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because for me, the biggest crime in cinema is being boring. That's why I watch trash, because trash isn't boring. I'd rather watch something that's absolute trash than something that's just absolutely dull, dishwater. And but this, it's never boring. It is slow. And I think that's the very fine line. And I think that is the difference between a good scriptwriter and a bad one. It's just like a bad scriptwriter would make these scenes intolerable. But I think the cinematography just adds so much to it, and it's so considered. But it's not considered in like the way of like where we said about Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, and it's like that could be every frame in that movie could be a poster on a wall, I don't feel that with this film. No. I don't think this is full of like shots that make me go, wow, it's beautiful. It's just it's the pace is perfect. The framing is just perfect you
almost feel like you're like with Robert Eggers, I'm like, well, this looks gorgeous, but not at any point did I feel like I was there. Like I say, I ran more like a nightmare with these Nosferatu, but with this, I felt like I was there. I felt like there's a scene in the bar early on with David Arquette's buddy, and Kurt Russell comes in. He says, "You're awfully aggressive for a guy named Buddy." Blah blah blah. And they have this shot where he discovers what he's done, that he's buried something. He runs off and he shoots them. He shoots them. He falls to the deck. Smoke comes off him, and it's just all in this one.
Bruder's in the foreground.
Unglamorous shot, but for the best reasons. And I almost felt like I was sitting at a table at the other end of the room, because the way it's lit, it's not overlit. It feels like I'm in the Old West in this dank bar. That's and all the elements and the technology is exactly like it was then in the dimly lit. For that, and that's how every scene feels. It feels authentic. There we go, authentic. So that's what I
No, you've nailed it. Absolutely nailed it with that one. Yeah, authentic is exactly the word for it. I think it does. It's not like documentary style, because I think documentary style being there would move the camera.
Yeah.
This just literally feels like you're there. It also feels quite stage play-ish. And I think that in a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in like it allows the actors to use the frame to do their thing. And there's a lot of scenes where they're setting up camp and all that, where it's just nice long takes of actors doing stuff, the banter, the interplay, and all that happening in just one single shot. And that sort of thing. I mean, the other one, where the Mexicans come in and he shoots them, and you've just got them on the left and on the right. There's this massive negative space in the middle, just a big gap in between them, but he just shoots them, and it's so sudden and shocking that that standoff looks absolutely perfect. So it's an extremely considered film. I can imagine this was very storyboarded, but so when the actual violence happens, it's so frantic and sudden. It really shakes you out of that, because you feel like you're there, like you say, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Christ, what's going on?
Exactly that.
And I think that's that is a massive strength for me.
I think that's the scene itself is horrific, and it, like I say, we'll touch on it in a bit, but it's because it's so immersive of a movie, and it has more of an effect for that reason, because it's like, shit, I'm in this world and this is happening, so it's got that realism to it, which makes it even worse.
Yes, yeah. And I think because he's established that we are putting you there by keeping it static, he carries that right through to that moment. In that moment, you are suddenly like, I'm in that prison, I'm watching this happen to this poor bastard. And it's just, yeah.
Talk about holding a shot as well. Like, if you want to look away, you're going to have to turn your head, because it'll not cut away.
Yeah. And that is absolutely a moment of genius, I think. So have you got any other thoughts on the sort of technical side, or the sort of
like I say, the way it's shot and the realism and the authenticity, and I think the best scene for me that describes that is when your man Buddy, his game's up and he goes to run off and he gets shot, and for some reason I just found that whole segment just gorgeous to watch.
Yeah. And again, like you say, and you would have otherwise, you'd cut, he's getting shot, you can see the close-up, leg bang, and all that, but it's not. It's all just done as one, almost again stage play-esque moment, and he shoots him, and it's
imagine you keep saying that, and it's like I keep thinking about it's like, imagine watching this on stage in a play just for the finale, just like, fuck.
I know, but somebody needs to do it, I reckon.
I'd go and see it.
But I think I said earlier about how it feels like he's they're bringing back sort of old style, of cinema, and I feel like they have learned, they've looked at kind of what works. But he very, very, very much wants to make a Western, and he wants to make a horror film. It's not like he's just going, let's just make a cheesy horror, in a Western setting. It's like he very much makes a Western, and that's why I think the cinematography is. I said about John Ford. I mean, that's what it is. It's a classic cowboy movie. When they're riding, the shots of them just riding along the plains. You've got the four horses in a line. The horizon shots and all that sort of stuff. It really is treated like a proper cowboy movie. And for a massive chunk of the film, you actually, like you said, you almost forget that it's a horror. The horror's coming. And because I knew it was coming this time around, I couldn't put myself in that mindset again. But I was thinking back, and I was thinking, when I first watched it, was I constantly waiting for some horror to happen, or did I just kind of ease into this I can't remember, but I
remember it's rewatching it, because you always remember when people talk about it, and I will keep saying it, and we're going to get to it, the finale. But like I say, it's because of there is so much calm between the terror that you do forget that you're watching a horror, and then you pull it up and it's like, no, it is categorized as a horror, but that's to its strength, to be honest. I've never seen a Western horror combined before, but that very much is what it is, and it's done so masterfully.
There have been other examples, but nothing approaching this level. All the others still very much feel like they're a horror film first. And not, and I think, it's like this. The horror. We'll talk a bit more, I suppose, about this later. But I think the horror itself, in a way, as brutal as it is, it could have been anything. It could have been like an animal. It could have been. It's like the what happens to these guys is very specific, obviously. But I think it almost doesn't sort of matter. It was about the journey. It's about the journey, the horror element itself. I'm glad it's as good as it is, but it's almost irrelevant to me because whatever happened horrible to these characters was gonna be sad because I just loved them all so much by the time they got there. It could have been anything and it would have just been tragic, and I think it's testament to its patience that it takes so long and it shoots it so beautifully that you just feel you're watching this Western. You're watching a classic Western.
Agree.
And that was really interesting to me. So let's get on to it. So obviously point 3, there's absolutely no way I could possibly say the violence wasn't like one of the key standout moments of this film. Now, I mean, saying it's a positive, I mean, positive, it's violent.
I know what you mean. Yeah, don't judge us.
Bastard. But but genuinely, like the horror in this film, and the reason I've left it till last, this is probably the most obvious thing to talk about in this movie. The reason I've left it till last is because the horror works so well because of everything that's happened before, but also it's bookended with some really truly horrific things. Like the opening shot is one of the most shocking opening shots I've ever seen in a movie. Because you see a guy open his eyes and his throat starts getting cut, and it is just there's no messing around. It is like 10 seconds, bang. This guy's throat is being, and it's not just like cut, he is sawing his throat, and that's the opening of the movie, and it sets the tone, and you think
that's what I put as well. Sets the tone immediately. Yeah,
immediately you're just like bloody hell, and then you're obviously into this world of these two bandits, and it's like, oh no, they don't give a fuck about anyone. They're just like out for them, they're just out to rob and kill. And you see the mess they make, but then Sid Haig, an actor, by the way, I completely forgot was amazing to see Sid Haig. I love a bit of Sid Haig, so that was really cool to see him in this. But suddenly he dies, and it's really undramatic. It's undramatic the way he dies. That doesn't mean it's bad. I don't mean they failed to create drama. It's just when he dies, it's so sudden and so shocking. It's almost like, whoa, it's matter of fact. And I think that is the ace up the sleeve of this movie, is it uses horrific violence, but manages to convey it in almost such a matter of fact way.
Absolutely.
That it makes it some of the most brutal stuff I've ever seen.
He manages to encapsulate pretty much everything that this, all the different tones of this movie, he encapsulates within that first scene. So what I mean by that is he establishes the dry banter and the dark humor when you've got David Arquette saying having a conversation with Sid Haig, and he's just like, because you hear the throat, and he's just like, what was that? And he's like, oh, it's a gust. And he's like, if that was a gust, then it's learned an instrument sort of thing. And it's like that witty cowboy western, that's funny. And then the calmness of that scene leading up to the Sid Haig's demise, so the calmness is established, and then it's like, but every now and again we're going to catch you with some terror, some brutal terror. So for that reason, that opening scene it hits everything that this movie represents and establishes. What you're in.
I think it's interesting because I think you look at, I mentioned about sort of noughties horror, and that kind of how extreme everything went, and kind of people were sort of pushing the boundaries, your torture porn and all that sort of stuff. But they were pushing the boundaries with practical effects and horror and just nastiness. But it always felt like shock value, where Bone Tomahawk is absolutely shocking, but I don't think it's done just to shock. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like he conveys a level of realism about the violence that makes it more shocking than any torture porn shit you could watch. It doesn't matter, it is so matter of fact. You just go, holy Christ, that's what it'd be like if somebody's fingers just suddenly get cut off, or an arrow just flies out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that the moment those 3 arrows, you get Bruder gets hit, I think doesn't Kurt Russell get hit, and one goes just literally catches Richard Jenkins's head, and you don't normally see that, somebody just getting injured in passing, but it's so
and brutal injuries as well, and people
brutal
just have to
injuries,
crack on.
And then his hand gets hit, and it's it is it's really like it's just bloody horrifying. You're like, wow, that it felt like some of the most realistic violence I've ever seen. And there's no music. I thought that was an amazingly clever choice. There's not a single bit of music in the entire movie. You know, it is absolutely sound.
It adds to the realism. It adds to the realism, which is clearly what he was going for.
Yeah, and you know, some westerns go towards being realistic, some don't. But like, you know, I think he keeps it very grounded.
Yeah,
and that's what makes it feel less like, even though it's very, very much a horror movie in those last 20 minutes, it doesn't. I wouldn't say it feels like a horror movie because you haven't got all the kind of cliches of the horror movie. You haven't got the music and the da, you know, da, you know, there's none of that happening. It's like there's no build up, and I think that makes
on that note, I mean, it makes those scenes where the savages burst out of a bush and they're like it makes that so much more impactful. It makes it so like, oh shit, like you jump almost because there's no foreboding music that's like, oh, something's coming. It's kind of like, no, they just jump out and it's just like, oh shit, well that was you know what I mean?
Yeah, very much. And I think it's that stuff just indicates it's the world of life and death, isn't it? And you get that all the way through because you not only from the scenes at the beginning, the horror at the end, but scenes with the way the Mexicans, the brutal way he just shoots them down, but he explains why, and he's probably not wrong. You know, he's probably not wrong. The moral people, me personally, I'm like, oh my God, I could never do that. I could never just shoot somebody like unarmed or whatever. But he knows that if he doesn't, they just kill him. They'd be attacked. They'll be dead. You know, and it's that unforgiving nature, and I think it's the whole film just oozes the brutality of frontier life, you know, and the horror violence underpins that whole message throughout. It's not just the horror of the troglodytes and what they're doing, it's the horror that everybody's doing to everyone on the frontier. You know, it's just a nasty place to live. And,
absolutely. I said like as well, like the whole touch with the broken leg, it's just like, well, that was pretty much a death sentence back then because gangrene would set in, and it's like one of the reasons the walk takes so long. But it just adds to the whole vibe that they're going for, like realism. Just thinks of it, and
the cheapness of life. You know, just you know, everybody they do such a great job of obviously making these rich three-dimensional characters, but then their deaths come so easily and so quickly that you just kind of go, wow, you know.
I mean, Speaking of which, deaths that come quickly, did you have any other brutality you wanted to touch on? Or
so basically, obviously we have to talk about that. And I mean, it's, I mean, I remember my reaction to it this time around was nowhere near as bad because like the first time you see that happen, you know, you just don't see what's coming. And then you start thinking, what are they going to do? Like, you think they're going to stab him or slit his throat or, you know.
It keeps getting worse and worse. And I almost forgot about the scalping because I always remember what
I completely forgotten that happened, and that is definitely the most brutal scalping I've ever seen in a movie.
Because it's kind of like it's insult to injury, right? Like and then some. It's like these troglodytes are like inbred, like horrendous, and like they're savage in every sense of the word. I mean, they don't just scalp him; they take the hair off and just shove it in his mouth, and it's just like, fuck, it just keeps getting worse and worse.
That man deserved to die. All right. You send my possessions back to Michigan. Most of that stuff belongs to my brothers. I'll send it.
Yeah, they're absolute animals, and the way what they do to that poor guy. I kind of, part of me wonders whether they'd already done that to David Arquette, because you don't see David Arquette, right? He's just
they
gone.
say because they say what happened to him, and she goes, they ate him.
Yeah, so I suspect he probably died in the same way. They probably just killed him. That's probably their finishing move. So
the finishing move.
Yeah, I think that's probably
Cold Stunner.
It's the
Sweet chin
tag
music.
team, you know, triple tag team takedown.
Tag team splitter.
Oh, Jesus Christ! But I mean, there's not a. I mean, well, anyone would probably feel that way, but like, there's not a guy in the audience who wouldn't just.
No, absolutely, and it's so, like you say, it's so unglamorous. It's so like the strip, like, I don't know why, but the stripping of the clothes off and so leaving them like vulnerable and bare, and it's just like the most undignified way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just there's no glamour, and there's no like, sometimes, with horror films, you watch them to go like, oh, the gore was really cool, or like, oh, that death was great. And I think that's probably what the Torchborn stuff was trying to go for, is like trying to shock, but at the same time you're like watching it for the gore. You're not watching this to see people die. You're watching it to see them survive.
You might come away and this scene will be one of the main things that you remember, but I'm not asked about, like, I think because I like gore in my movies, a lot of people assume that like I'll just watch any kind of like torture porn or like gore, and it's just like the story has to be good though, otherwise I don't rate it. It either has to be a good story or it has to be ridiculous and entertaining.
Exactly. But I think with this one, it's like it's not. It's clearly going to be the bit everybody knows. I mean, he would have known directing this. This was going to be the moment.
Yeah.
But it's like it's so unglamorous that it's not sort of you're not meant to be going cool. Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I talked about. Funny enough, actually, I mean, no music, kind of quite realistic. I talked in the last episode about In a Violent Nature, and that has some similarities to this in the way it's just like there's no music, there's no it's very sort of just matter of fact. But I said about one of the deaths in that, and that was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. And you are just cheering, you're laughing. You know what I mean? I was like, but there's no way you're laughing at what happens to this poor sod. I mean, it's just the most horrible death I've ever seen, because you just think, my God, what a way to go! Like that is no way to go. And I think in a way that's what makes that exchange between Richard Jenkins and Kurt Russell so beautiful, is when he's like, the cavalry are coming, and you're thinking, why is he saying this? And then when he explains why, you just go, oh, I get it. Yeah. I would want to hear that if that was happening to me. He's just trying to give him something positive in that moment, No,
I completely agree.
I thought that was beautiful. What a lovely little moment. It says a lot about Kurt Russell's character.
Yeah, no, it is a lot about Kurt Russell's character. I mean, like I say, we'll touch on that when we get on to the main man himself. So the violence of that scene, it's like I say, it encompasses what we've already talked about, like as a strength of Zola's, in that everything is pretty much he's very good at establishing, like everything supports what type of character someone is, be it little or be it small. Every decision supports what type of character someone is, and that scene, it is brutal, but it supports what type of people they're dealing with. So there's reasoning. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, everything in this movie happens for a reason, like everything. And I think in a way, I totally hadn't remembered this at all from the first time around. But in a way, actually, almost as brutal is the moment where they're leaving the cave. And you just get a glimpse of, they mention early on that there's 14 of them, but there's 2 women and they're both pregnant. But there's a line, I can't remember, the line is something like it's about how they treat them or something, or they're like captives or something. But then you just get this moment, and it's very quick. They move beyond it very, very quickly. But you get to see what they've done to their women, and it is absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
Because they are clearly just basically using them as like baby machines. They've taken their eyes, they're bound to the table, and they are pregnant. And you imagine that's literally how they spend their life. They are just pregnant. And I found that really shocking. Like I was just because that is, animals don't treat their women like that. They are beyond animals. They are they're just absolute.
There's little touches like that. There's little nods to the terror, and it's so funny. In a movie that shows you so much, it also leaves you a bit haunted by the things it doesn't show you. And that's when they first get there and they realise Patrick Wilson's wife's still alive, Samantha. She's in her cell. And it's this very throwaway line, but if you stop and realize what's just been said, like Kurt Russell, the sheriff, straight away, he's just like, "Oh my God, you're alive. Did they hurt you?" And she just looks at them. She's like, "I'm alive." And it's like, she doesn't, like, "I'm alive." Like, that's the take. It's like, fuck, what did they do to her, basically,
Yeah. I do think Well, yeah. I might circle back around to that point actually, but yeah, I think But there is, I mean, there's some lovely just moments just in the dialogue. You know, it's sort of it shows and tells, and you know, and I think it does both in equal measure. But I think the horror really stays with you, like that image of those women. You know, that image of that poor guy just like being cleaved. You know, there's. Those are sort of visuals that stay with you. And I mean, like I say, that opening shot, I think, is a piece of genius. I can't think of a film that starts as quick as that. You know, like action that fast, agree. Like within literally the first 5 seconds. It's not even 5 seconds. It's probably 3 seconds of the movie.
Yeah.
It goes from black. Guy opens his eyes and he's getting his throat sawn open. I mean, it just sets the tone. And I think he utilizes violence brilliantly. And I'm assuming that's carried on through his other films. Like I say, I haven't seen them.
Definitely is. Yeah. No, he nails. Like I say, dark comedy, calmness, slow pace, and violence in all of his movies for sure.
Yeah, great. Well, those are my three. Those are the sort of three positives, and I think they all bleed very much into each other. I think this is very much a movie that's a whole, you know. And I think the violence counteracted with the people, all shot beautifully. Those are the massive positives for me. So I did struggle with the three negatives, so we'll go to a break. But I do have points to talk. I think I'm going to approach them on. They're interesting talking points. I don't know how negative they are, but they're certainly things worth discussing. So should we go to a break and we'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back, everyone. So now that we've covered Carl's three loves, including brutal murder, because he's an absolute psychopath, we're now on to his. We're now on to his three. Well, I don't think it'll be as cut and dry as what we usually do, three loathes, but he's going to try his best to find a gripe or two, or if nothing else, it's going to be a fun talking point. So let's see if Carl managed to find any negatives. Carl, kick us off.
Yeah, so I think the first one is probably as much as I say, I don't know, I'm almost talked myself out of this one actually during this discussion, but I think the first was probably, it's a small story point and then it kind of built to kind of where we get to at the end. But it's I found it a little trite the way they find out about these Indians, like these sort of troglodyte Indians, because like they're on the frontier. Obviously, there'd be sort of rumors and myths and all that sort of stuff. But the fact that literally they just go, "Oh my God, who could possibly have kidnapped these?" And some guy just goes, "Oh, it's some troglodytes," and they live 5 days away. It's like, how did nobody else know this? Like, it's only 5 days. These guys must be ranging all over. But also, they seem to be riding for a hell of a long time. So it's like, how did this other guy know about it? So I thought that the setup for the actual creatures was, I'll call them creatures because they're human, but they're but they. And that led into kind of when they do finally get to them, I had more questions than answers. And I feel like I wish there'd just been a little bit more time spent with the monsters, you know, just kind of, I wanted to know. I think, and I think, you know, but you said just before the break, you know, that you like the fact that actually there's kind of stuff into that and you don't necessarily see it. But I sort of feel like they're savage for the sake of being savage. But you kind of, I almost wish I just understood them and where they come from, and what their backstory.
See, I think that's one of its strengths. That you don't know. Like, I think that's more jarring that you don't know what that deal is.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that, and I think in terms of the sudden violence and all that sort of stuff. But I think when it comes down to the end, the way they're just sort of picking them off. 14, then there's 12, 10, you know, and some are dying off screen, and you just kind of, I don't know, it felt to me that, I kind of felt they could have just done a little bit more with them in that final 20 minutes. I think we see what we need to see, the brutal violence.
You wanted to see more? What is wrong with you?
I don't know. I mean, there was some really interesting stuff, like, you know, the device that they'd throw. That's kind of, I've never seen that before. That was pretty cool, but it was kind of, so I don't know. That might just be a bullshit point, but it was just like, I think it's just the way that if they knew about them, then there should have been more known. They should have found out more, or, you know, been more prepared.
Well, it was only like that one guy that knew about them. I think they saw, they found the arrow, assumed like it's Native American sort of thing, and then that one guy said, well, actually, that belongs to this particular tribe, like inbred, like these horrendous things.
Yeah, he talks about them as a tribe, and you don't go there, and you know, but there's only 14 of them, and you just sort of think they're doing. There's no way.
It's really funny because he makes this comment, and they're like, "What do they look like?" And he was like, "You'd assume that they looked like me," and it's kind of like a painting, like all these people in the village think they all look the same, but it's just like you don't think that at all. You look at these things, and you're like, "I wouldn't have thought that at all. They're completely different from any other tribe."
Not even remotely, and that's a nice thing because I mean, it's quite difficult territory going into making the American Indians like your bad guys, like in the movie, you know. So I love the way that they just absolutely like, you know, it's like no, these aren't Indians, these are just their people. Yeah, they are native, but they're just native. For me, I felt they were more like they reminded me more like bad guys in The Descent or something. You know, it was like
that's a good show. Yeah.
And I think you expect that they've probably got a pool of blood somewhere, and so yeah. I just thought it was a little. I mean, I guess they had to get on with it, but I feel like maybe there was a better way than just a guy walking into the bar and just going, you know, oh, I know them, and they go okay, and then off they go. Because the thing is, they ride into such danger with almost like no prep. They're not, and even when they get there, they're kind of like, you know, sneaking in, but they're not really sneaking. You know, they walk in front of the cave entrance where they get shot with the arrows, and they're just being a bit.
They kind of seem to know from the get go that they might not be coming back. Like they sort of say, like, because I think they have a conversation with your man, sort of thing. He's just like, "There's no way you can beat them. Like, doesn't matter how many of you there are." And then Patrick Wilson sort of says, well, like, no, it's Kurt Russell that says me and Arthur are going to go because neither of us have a choice. Anyone else wants to come, that's fair enough. And it's setting up that they have to go. They know they're probably not going to survive, but they don't have a choice.
But I think they, when they get there, they actually think they're going to do much better than they do. You know what I mean? I think they feel they're probably prepared. They've got guns. You know, maybe it's overconfidence, but I think
it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. And once again, I think that's like a strength because you do think that they're going to get. I mean, they do. It is a slightly happy ending. Is it a happy ending? It kind of is. He saves her. I
think it goes back to what I said before the break. It's like you could replace these things with any kind of horror. That splitting the guy aside apart, you know, I feel almost like they set them up at the beginning. He says that they're this like legend, and but they're a tribe. It seems like are they like a legend that everybody talks about, because he seems to know exactly where they are. It's like no, they just avoid them. So they're not even a legend. They're fact. It's just these people are fact. These horrendous, violent, psychopathic, awful creatures that are living in the hills, but nobody's done anything about it. And never thought to mention it before. But then by the time you get to them, they're dispatched relatively easily, and it's kind of the big moments of horror. But it just sort of, I just feel like they could have done maybe just a bit more with building out what they are and what they do. I don't mean like I need their whole backstory. I just mean like, I don't know, I think there could have just been a little bit more world building with those. It is shocking the way you're just thrown in. You have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And you chop a guy in half. But it's like, I feel like maybe they could have just done a little bit more. It's a very small gripe. So that was, I really struggled with these, Jack. I struggled.
You are forgiven.
And the second one kind of plays into that as well, which is, I think the world, for me, it's so beautiful and expansive, big, high quality, right up to the point they get to that cave set. And then unfortunately for me, that whole ending, as shocking as the stuff that happens there is, it's just, it feels like it's a set. I never once believed that was a real cave. And I think for me, it feels a little bit like they put all the money into the stuff with all the horses, but the actual staging for me of some of this stuff just didn't quite. I think the budget of the film shows in the last 20 minutes, just because I think there was so much happening in those cave scenes, but I was just like, I'm not seeing anything else. You don't even see Patrick Wilson get in. He just suddenly you hear a gunshot and he just walks in. That's the moment to me where I thought, God, this.
I did wonder how he got up that hill with that leg, because they get hoisted up on a rope, right? It's like, how the hell did he get up that hill?
It was a bit of a hand wave where he just goes, there's a back entrance. And then fine, he gets into that back entrance, but I think that the choice to just have one single set, it's almost like one camera angle practically for a lot of it. It felt very stagey, and of course you get those horrific moments happening, and I think everything that happens within that is good, but I think, yeah, it felt a little small for me.
I get it.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Funnily enough, like these perfectly like whittled like craters in the wall with the bars and stuff. I'm like, it's not as savage as I'd like it. Like in terms of their decor, it does feel a bit like I enjoyed the fire pit in the middle, but I know exactly what you mean. It's hard to describe, but
yeah, it's like they walk in, they do stuff, they walk out, they walk in again, they walk out. It just feels a bit. I just felt like it was a bit unimaginative in terms of how it was staged.
These things are horrendous, and you're kind of like, I'm not saying I wanted them to live in squalor with feces everywhere, but like you'd kind of imagine that's what they'd be sleeping in, right? And to be honest, it looks like a well kept cave.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly my point. It feels like they just, for all the detail that went into the rest of the movie, I feel like the special effects team were entirely focusing on what was going to happen in the cave rather than the cave itself. The cave just felt a little cheap. But I think, yeah, the only shot you see of where else they live, because we've got these 14 people, they're meant to live in these caves or whatever. All we see is that one cave, and then when they're exiting, where the two women are, and it's like, that's it. It's like two shots.
I kind of like that we don't see the rest of where they live, because I'm a sucker for leave it to the imagination. My mind will make up the rest. But I do agree with you in the gripe that say it is very well kept. And when they presumably ate David Arquette, I mean, they executed that guy, the splitter, in front of everyone in the cell. Presumably they did the same with David Arquette, but there's no mess anywhere. And it's kind of like they don't strike us as the kind of people that would clean up after themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Exactly. But I think they could have done like, okay, the reveal, when they like leave and they see the two women. Would that have potentially been better seeing it from Patrick Wilson's horror as he sneaks in and finds them? Because he shoots one of them as well off camera. So we get like, and that's what I mean. Like for me, it just, the high production values suddenly just get a little cheap towards the end, because it's like he shoots one off camera and we just hear a gunshot and then he just conveniently walks in and it's like, oh, he's managed to get through the rest of the cave. He's killed 2 or 3 of them. And he's got there. We know some have died probably from the opium or whatever it was. But it's like, it all just feels a little convenient, and he just sort of saunters in and then he's like, oh, here we go. Okay, hi, wife. Off we go. It's almost like he doesn't even reference it. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you were going to rescue your wife, right, your wife to be, and you go into the cave and you rescue her, and then you're walking back out through where these 2 women are horrifically abused, like women are just, would you not at least just go cover your eyes?
All right. I thought you were going to be like, you wouldn't be like, what happened there? And just ask her to tell you sort of thing.
Yeah, like, maybe she's already seen it, but you might just assume that maybe she's seen it, but you might assume that she hasn't. And it's just like, so they could have built a bit more around that, I think. I just feel like it just wanted to get to the end at that point. And I think,
he needs to come in and he needs to save her. He needs to get out. And I almost feel like it's a weird one, because I almost feel like it would, in a movie that stinks of realism, it would be more realistic if there wasn't a happy ending and that he didn't save her. But I don't think, after all the misery that happened before that I could have took any more. Like if the movie ended on a downer, it would be like, Jesus, like you couldn't watch this movie like more than once a year at best.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's almost like the moment. I mean, I guess going back to The Descent, what The Descent got right was that moment where she literally falls into hell with the blood and the big blood pool. And I don't feel we get that moment with Patrick. Patrick Wilson. It's almost like the horror of what's going on. He's not affected at all. The horror of the situation that they're in, is all about things happening right in front of them. But there was a chance there to just get a bit more of an insight into some real deep-seated, nasty horror, like you say, the squalor and the horrible things they've done to their women and all that sort of stuff that could have just made him even more desperate to get to his wife, And I feel that like he just kind of wanders off the path, walks in, gets her, walks out, and done.
Yeah,
it's a bit easy.
It was. I'll agree with you there. It was a bit easy.
Yeah, it's not easy for anybody else, but I feel for him, it was a bit easy, and it's only in the last few minutes that kind of hit me. And actually, if I'm honest, I thought having done so much brilliant work to get Kurt Russell to where he needed to be, it almost ends on like a comedy line. She goes to kiss him, she's like, "Oh, you've been sucking that thing, so wipe the blood off your mouth." And I was like, this is too cute. This is like,
they do like this cheery. They even have like this cheery demeanor about themselves in Walls Off, and it's like, let's forget about all that horrific shit that you would only ever see in a nightmare. Like, let's go back to Bright Hope, sort of thing.
It ends almost on a banter, even though you've got this amazing kind of moment, and it's done with sound. Obviously, if Kurt Russell, you know he's going to die. But yeah, they're just joking, and I felt tonally that was a real misstep in the last few minutes. But yeah, and my third one, really, this can be super quick, I think, because we've already talked about it, but it's just, I think it's the pace. And I think the thing is, for me and you, we've already said earlier, the pace was okay, but I flagged it as a negative because I think it's more like, I don't see it, but I think I could see people not enjoying this movie.
Oh, no, for sure.
Because of the pace.
My partner didn't rate, like, when I showed her this movie, she didn't rate it at all. I think, like, she wasn't even surprised by the time we got to the gore. It wasn't a case of like, this is the shock scene everyone's waiting for, because she was so like up until that point, because like I said, I've mentioned it before, not really a film fanatic or anything like that. So for her, it was just kind of like, oh, this movie's just... So yeah, there are people out there that would definitely see this movie as white noise. Yeah.
I think that pace, as we've said, it's very deliberate. It's done intentionally, and I think some people wouldn't get on board with that. But it's the same, like I said about In a Violent Nature. It's a very slow film as well. It's that sort of pace. And there's a few films like that. Jeremy Saulnier, who did Green Room, Blue Ruin. They're kind of contemporaries, with Zala, and I feel that was very much a sort of intentional tonal shift that a lot of cinema did, around this time, because they're very slow, very deliberate films. The violence is extremely shocking, very realistic. And I think those films kind of work well together. Blue Ruin and this, or Green Room and this would make good double bills. If you wanted just like really slow paced, depressingly violent horror films. But Jack, favorite line time. I've got a definite favorite in this one, but yeah, over to you.
In a movie that's absolutely packed to the brim with amazing one-liners. I think I've got a list of about 20 like favorite quotes, but for me, it's a Kurt Russell quote, and it sets up the exact type of character he is quite early on. And it's the scene where Samantha's just been kidnapped by the savages, and like it's all kicking off in the village, and then like he finds out that Samantha's been kidnapped, so he's going to console Arthur. And then you've got this guy like that busts in. He's just like, my horses have been stolen. They're like, hang on a minute. We're dealing with this guy here that's like lost his wife. He's like, yeah, but like, what's going to happen about the horses? Like, you're gonna? And then he just looks at him and is like, you ask about the horses again, I'll slap you red. And he does it so. It's such a badass sort of like, and I'm like, he says it so early on that I'm just like, put Kurt Russell in every Western. Like he is a Western sheriff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's so good, and we'll get into this in more detail after the final break. But like because he has a heart of gold, but he doesn't take any shit either. And then there's a comment at the beginning about how because when he says he shot the guy in the leg. There's the comment where somebody goes, did he shoot him in the leg again or something? So it's like the first time he's shot someone in the leg. It's just what he does. So that was a really good line. For me, there was just one bit of dialogue I thought was brilliant, and that was it was Richard Jenkins and Matthew Fox, and they're looking at what Patrick Wilson's doing off in the distance, and he says, I think there's a snake in the tree, and he goes, what kind? And you just hear a gunshot, and he goes, deceased. Just a great line.
Absolutely love that. But it's his accent as well. Like I say, what Matthew Fox did with that, it's very much like you say, like Val Kilmer's Doc, and that his accent felt so authentic, so deceased. Like it just added another like. It was enjoyable to hear him say shit.
Yeah, it's really good. But yeah, let's go to break, and I mean, God. This could end up being 6 hours long, but I mean, we've got to talk about Kurt Russell. How are we going to do this in 30 minutes? So welcome back then to our final section. Jack picked this film because, as you said at the beginning, one of the legends of cinema. I think it's very easy to sort of throw the word legend of cinema around, but I think in this instance, there's absolutely no denying he is one of the true movie stars out there. And it's proven by the fact that he has had a basically consistent career for at least 5 decades. I mean, even other big movie stars have had their ups and their downs and their sort of real flops and kind of crazy career moves. Arnie decided to do comedy, all that sort of stuff, where it's like Kurt Russell has done a bit of everything. And
he's very versatile.
Just still absolutely smashing it. So let's talk about Bone Tomahawk and then we can sort of get into the meat of that.
Again, what he brought. I mean, like I say, I mentioned it with the one-liner before. So when I first watched Bone Tomahawk, the only Western I'd seen Kurt Russell in is obviously Tombstone. And I didn't realize that how much I liked him in a Western until I saw Bone Tomahawk. And it's kind of like the genre just gets into his veins and he just absolutely nails it. I mean, he did the same again with Hateful Eight. He's just really good at portraying that period in time. And a lot of the reason that I loved watching, so he just carries that dialogue so well. And it goes to what I said before about Zala, that it's not just that it's written well. He makes terrific casting choices. He knows exactly who the best fit for these roles are. And Kurt Russell he seems to know his way around this world. He's not cocky. He's a realist. He's happy to have Bruder along because he knows that he'll be useful. He lets Richard Jenkins along because he, I guess, feels sorry for him and kind of wants him to feel useful. And we'll go into more. I'll tag you in, but I'll compile my thoughts. But that's why I think he's such a good character in this movie. Yeah,
I mean, it's like I say, I think he's a badass with a heart of gold, and I think he's a tough frontier sheriff, which is exactly what you'd need to be. They set up that world is very violent and death comes quick, and so you couldn't be a slouch as a sheriff.
Yeah.
But he's not just like all mean. His relationship with his wife is lovely. I really like their scene together. I really love the way he acts to Richard Jenkins, and he's so sort of gentle and understanding and patient with him.
Yeah.
And yet he still isn't afraid to make tough choices. Like, he is quite straight up with. He doesn't think Patrick Wilson's going to survive. He is just like, we're just going to have to leave him. Like, he's definitely a man who can make tough choices, but he does it for all the right reasons. Like, he never seems to be out for himself at any point in this movie. He is always thinking of everybody else, and I think that makes him just a great protagonist.
It's what I said before when he sort of said me and Arthur are going for his wife because neither of us have a choice.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like he just knows his duty. He cares about the people. He's the best person to be the sheriff, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can imagine he's an extremely popular guy. He's good at dealing with everybody. Like you say, when somebody steps out of line, he slaps them down. But at the same time, he is really, courteous about sort of cutting into their evening when he needs to borrow Samantha to do the guy's leg, and he's got manners. He's a top bloke.
He's a great guy, but he's a great guy that follows the rules of the time in which he's set. And I think that's another testament of this movie. He's not a great guy I could argue that he is. He's a great guy by those standards, like back then. They don't sort of try and bring him to today, but to today's values. And there's a scene that does it brilliantly, and it's when they're talking about, I keep forgetting his actual name, but for argument's sake, Buddy, David Arquette's character. He's talking about getting the bullet out of his leg. And it's just like they make a comment about what's the point? You're just gonna hang him anyway. And they sort of say, well, maybe you don't hang him. And then he sort of says, I know quite a few people that'll be happy to see him go purple by the rope. And it's sort of like you'll quite happily hang someone, but he's a nice guy. He just follows the rules. And
he's definitely on the side of the law. I mean, and I think, it's frontier justice, isn't it? He's he is there to keep the rules and do it well. but he does it with humanity. I think that's the thing. It's humanity. He's not just like, but he's not by any accounts like an action hero, and you wouldn't put your action hero through what he has to go through. I mean, like, he doesn't deserve anything that happens to him at the end, but then when he does die, it's an act of nobility. It's an act of, like,
and I guess that I'd love to see the look on his face when he first read the script, because, like I say, you've got the veteran that is Kurt Russell. Like I say, he's been around since the 60s as a child actor, and he's like gotten bigger and bigger, and everyone knows his name, and he's like being a leading man in quite a few projects. And I Googled it just to make sure when I watched this movie what his Kurt Russell died in a movie, and he's never died in a movie before.
I might counter that by saying there's no way in hell he was surviving the thing. No way in hell.
That's left up to the imagination. Like, well, no. Actually,
anytime he dies on camera,
I'll counter that again.
He doesn't die on camera.
He doesn't die on camera again. Like, he's never died on camera. There you go. But optimists out there, McCready survived. Pessimists, there you go. But
no chance. McCready's the thing.
Yeah, McCready's the thing. There was. No, it was Giles, because there was no oxidation of breath in the snow. But you've got, like I say, that for him to read this script and be Kurt Russell, he's quite a humble man. Like, if you've seen his interviews and shit, if the script's good, he just cares about the craft. And he read this script and just thought, yeah, like, I'm doing this. Like, I'm going to die in a very horrific way. We didn't touch on it before when we talked about the brutality, but, like, once again, it's not glamorous. Like, to get the, like, essentially, like, carved up and get a heated flask put inside.
Oh God, yeah, and to see sort of Kurt Russell going through that is hard to watch, because, like, right, he's such a great kind of hero character in so many things. Like, it's a really unglamorous death, that one, isn't it? I mean,
but like I say, it's I'd love to be in the room where he read it and just being like, yeah, like, count me in, because this is such a mad opportunity for a first time director, like, because he wrote it as well, right? So it's kind of like, to get people on board, like, to the degree that he got people on board.
Such an amazing cast. Is there anything else you want to say about Bone Tomahawk? I mean, brilliant. I mean,
like I say, Kurt Russell is the reason I chose this movie, and the reason I connected it via Kurt Russell. For me, I know I said Richard Jenkins deserved an Oscar, but Kurt Russell is my favorite thing in this movie, and he's the reason I enjoy it so much, and that's because the man was born to be in Westerns, for sure.
Yeah, I can't deny that. Yeah, I mean, and, I'm not as big a fan of Tombstone as you, but I think, he is great in that. And it's funny that this was like Western, nearly 20 years later, probably, it's, Hateful Eight, he definitely feels like he's very comfortable. But I think that ties nicely, though, into what I'd say about him. I mean, is like, he's incredibly versatile. Like, you can't pigeonhole. There must have been moments during his career where, like, he's really gone off the boil or whatever. But then when I was looking through it's like every 3 or 4 years, he just makes a great movie or will be in at least something. Even if it's not a great movie, it's a big movie. It's a tentpole movie. He has literally never gone through, like, a straight-to-video phase or, just a phase where...
I know what you mean.
He's done a weird career tangent. He's always been there. He is just a really reliable leading man. Like,
no, for sure, he's kind of like towed the line of, like, he almost like ran the risk. I was going to say he almost ran the risk of, like, falling into action hero territory, but he never did really fall into the Sylvester Stallone or Schwarzenegger category, even though he was in Tango and Cash. But he was almost like kind of like Bruce Willis in that respect. How the kind of towards, like, they make, like, action movies, but then there's a whole other catalogue of genres that they're really good at as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, if Kurt Russell does an action hero, it's Jack Burton. He's not just like the all guns blazing, indestructible tough man. I mean, I guess Snake is probably the closest to that.
The closest too.
But even that's done with a wink and a kind of sense of irony and like, but you look at Jack Burton and he's like the most unheroic hero you've ever seen.
Sure.
He has done such a variety of characters. Like, he can do military really well. You think Stargate, you've got Executive Decision, cheesy, 90s action. You've got, but you've got Westerns, he's brilliant, and he never feels out of place. He's played everyman characters, truckers, helicopter pilots. I mean, they're normal working, I guess, kind of working class guys mostly. I mean, he's very good at the everyman kind of.
But he seems to fit into them so well. Like he's got so much range. Like you say, he can play someone badass like Snake Plissken, and then he can, on the other side of the same action coin, play, for lack of a better term, a bit of a buffoon sidekick like Jack Burton.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can someone so badass and someone so buffoonish be played by the same person? It's very much that.
I mean, isn't that brilliant? I mean, that's a brilliant snapshot, isn't it? I mean, you look at McCready, Snake, and Jack Burton, and they are all so different as characters. And all the same director, same star.
Yeah.
He definitely, he's definitely cut above that kind of cookie cutter action kind of character. I mean, I love Arnie, but Arnie's Arnie. I never feel like Kurt Russell is the thing I'm watching. I feel like I'm watching his characters. It's like
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, and like I say, I've seen interviews with him and stuff, and I don't know what I expected, but I'm glad that he wasn't up his own arse. Like, he's very, very laid back, and he's like, he just understands his ranking, and he understands, like, I hate this term, but he always understands the assignment, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like I say, he knows how to stay in his lane. There's very specific sort of things he does, but I think, you can't imagine that he would ever do something really out there. I've never seen him. I mean, probably like the silliest thing I've seen him do is probably now, which is but even then, he's a brilliant Santa Claus. Have you seen the Christmas
comment I wanted to make as well when I was looking back through his catalogue? Was Christmas Chronicles, because for all intents and purposes, for me anyway, it's not a good movie. But what isn't bad in that movie is his portrayal of Kris Kringle, and it's just like, it doesn't matter if the movie's bad, he's not. Like, he just always gives 110 in all of his performances. Like, his Santa Claus is really cool.
There's a great musical number in that Christmas one where it's like a massive kind of saxophone blues breakdown, and he's singing, and I was just like, this guy could have done musicals. He could do kind of a bit of anything, but I'm kind of glad he hasn't done a musical. But like,
he could, and it would be absolutely fine. I'd watch this shit out of this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He's never bad. Like, there's not a single film. Executive Decision is a pile of crap. He is really fun.
He is really good in that movie.
He's really fun. Can you imagine if that film had been the other way around and it was him who got sucked off? But like, instead of Steven Seagal, and it was Seagal leading that movie, and he was the one who got. Like, could you imagine what an absolute pile of travesty that would have been? Like,
all the running scenes, especially because Steven Seagal can't run.
but yeah, I just think they made the right choice. Because everyone thought Steven Seagal was going to be the hero of that movie, and then he dies, and it was like, no, don't underestimate Kurt Russell.
I mean, on that note, like I say, I'm gonna whip out the glasses. For apologies for everyone looking like my eyes aren't that good anymore, but I'm gonna blast through like the standout movies for me, just to remind people, because I think it often escapes people's memories, like how long he's been around. Because this was a guy that, like, and don't know how many people know this, he was a Disney child actor. That's how he got his like break. He was in a lot of Disney movies as a child and then worked his way up. So he's been around for quite some time. But I'm going to start at 1963, starting with It Happened at the World Fair, a movie that starred Elvis. This is where it all started. Not his first movie, but his more standout one. There's a scene where there's a kid that kicks Elvis in the shin. That was Kurt Russell. So,
wow.
Anyway.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah. So it's funny that his career actually started he's probably started in a movie with Elvis. But yeah, we've got It Happened at the World Fair, The Computer That Wore Tennis Shoes, Strongest Man in the World, Elvis, Escape from New York, Fox and the Hound, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, Tango and Cash, Tombstone, Stargate, Vanilla Sky, Sky High, Death Proof, Bone Tomahawk, Hateful Eight, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Christmas Chronicles, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, there's tons of movies in between that, but those are always the ones that stick in my mind the most. Special shout out to 3,000 Miles to Graceland as well, that I forgot to mention.
I would add Breakdown, which I think is a hugely underrated.
Spoiler, we always talk at the end of what movies that we really want to see the actor in that we've yet to see them in. Breakdown's mine, and I made a note of that.
Yeah, because I was really singing his praises. And that is a film that, again, it's like, it was everything I wanted it to be. It's just a really taut 90s thriller. Is every man best. He's just he's just literally a normal guy. And that, again, that's the great thing about him. He can be a military hero in like Stargate. You know, but he can also just be a guy who's just like a banker.
You keep saying Stargate. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's an episode of South Park where, like, it's called Imagination Land, and they open like this Stargate portal to get into it, and they recruit Kurt Russell because he's the only man that's been in a movie similar to what's happening. And he's just like, but I'm an actor. And they're just like, no, but you've been in that movie that's got something like this in it. So we're going to send you into this Imagination Land. And then he gets sexually abused by these woodland critters.
What? Tell them to get away now! What's the matter? Oh, the cute little bear's eyes are starting to glow red now. Hello there, little animals. Do you happen to know how to hop? Kurt Russell, what's going on? They're raping me!
It's absolutely hilarious, but every time you see a Stargate, I can't help but think about Kurt Russell getting sexually abused.
That's the list of Kurt Russell performances. Have you seen Soldier? They did with Paul P.W.S. Anderson.
Once, when I was quite young.
Because, again, I remember him being really good in that. That was a bit more into his action movie territory. But the problem with that is the director, I think, let it down as opposed to the movie. But that's quite violent. That's quite a, really nasty sort of, like sci-fi, quite violent sort of action movie.
There was a movie that I mentioned at the on the back end of that list that I forgot to chuck in the middle, and it's a movie that is really good and like nobody ever talks about. I never hear anyone talking about it, but it's 3,000 Miles to Graceland. Funnily enough, it also had David Arquette in it, so they've been in a movie before. But it's basically about these bank robbers that do a heist, but they're all dressed as Elvis. So it stars Kevin Costner, who's adamant that he's related to the actual Elvis. And there's this whole it's a really like fun action movie comedy, but then it made us realize how much connection Kurt Russell, be it deliberate or just coincidentally, has to Elvis. So there was that first movie where he kicks Elvis in the shin. Then you've got the fact that he played Elvis, and then you've got 3,000 Miles to Graceland, where he's kind of like this illegitimate child of Elvis. And then, for anyone that didn't realize, have you seen Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
There's a scene in it with Elvis where he's sort of like distorted so you can't see him. Uncredited in that scene, the person who does the voice for Elvis is Kurt Russell.
That's amazing.
Yeah. He just keeps coming back to Elvis, yeah.
Yeah, he must be a big fan. He must be like that. I guess if you work with him and stuff. But that's strange how some of these things just kind of go through people's careers as a weird touch point. But because he's not otherwise very Elvis-y, really, for me. Like,
no, I think it's weird because the more I talk about his career and the more like you watch his progression, his evolution as an actor, like I feel like he does certain things in certain decades. Like he did like action, like the likes of Snake, and he did like a sort of action comedy, the likes of Big Trouble in Little China, and then horror as McCready. But he was still kind of like an action hero, just not in the traditional sense. 90s, it went into the 90s action territory, and you've got like Tango and Cash and things like that. But the more he's got older, the more that he's like gravitated into like sort of Bong Tomahawk, like Death Proof and everything like that. It showed this when he did Death Proof, like it almost started establishing like Kurt Russell is. We remember like how classy you were. Now let's like we know how talented you are. Let's see, like let's keep going. Because Quentin Tarantino was a massive fan of John Carpenter, so I think it wasn't a mistake that he cast Kurt Russell. And then he just went from strength to strength.
Yeah, it's weird because, like I say, he's never been off our screens. Consistently watched him throughout my life, and yet when Death Proof came out, I suppose it did feel almost like, it's the comeback of Kurt Russell. But he never didn't have it. He never needed a comeback. You know what I mean? He's like he's always been in good stuff. So I don't know what he did between Death Proof and kind of things like Breakdown and Soldier and stuff, but like
Vanilla Sky. He was in Vanilla Sky. Just kept showing up every now and again.
Yeah. I don't really remember him in that, but it's been a long time.
He's the counselor, which is funny because you were talking about Tom Cruise earlier, and I was just like, I was actually in a movie with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But he, but Stuntman Mike was just a great.
I've never seen him as a villain before. I've never seen him in that light. Before.
But playing kind of a nasty, side to him as well. Sleazy side. It was, I mean, yeah. It's, God, we could talk all day. I mean, the thing is, it's hard to sort of pinpoint because he's been so varied in his career. It's hard to pinpoint even like what his main characteristics are. Like
I say, for anyone listening that isn't as obsessed with Kurt Russell as me and Carl, see if you can figure him out. Because if I could recommend 3 movies to watch, and it would all be by John Carpenter, funnily enough. But if you watch The Thing, if you watch Big Trouble in Little China, if you watch Escape from New York, he's completely different in all those movies.
Yeah.
I'd like to say versatile. Yeah.
And I mean, who would you say out of those 3? Is it Snake for you? Favorite of those characters?
It's Jack Burton. Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China's in my top 5 because he's
so fun in that role.
He's so fun to watch, and I think John. I mentioned this on the last episode, but John Carpenter said the best thing about Jack Burton is he thinks he's the hero of the story. He doesn't realize he's the sidekick.
Yeah, that's a great.
And that sums up
right there.
Yeah, Jack Burton perfectly, and it's like the lines that he comes out with. On anyone else, it would be like cringe, and you'd like sink into your shoulders. But see when he looks to the camera, he's just like when he says shit like "May the wings of liberty never lose a feather," it's just like, I'm just totally on this Jack Burton train. Take me wherever you want to go, man.
Yeah, and he clearly is willing to be led by the director really well, because he's not afraid to make himself look stupid, but not in a way that's like that plays to the movie. Not like he's never done like like everybody in their catalog has got like a Mr. Freeze. Or they've got that kind of role where they just go, oh Jesus, like Dennis Hopper and Mario Brothers, or like, ooh, like he's never done one of them. I don't feel like he's
Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. He's never done this sort of like. He's always made very good choices.
He's just never. He never is over the top. He's never too much. He's welcome in every movie that he's in. Like he's a supporting player because he's not even the lead in Stargate. That's the funny thing. Like Kurt Russell isn't the lead in that movie, right? It was James Spader or someone, but he like is the best thing in that movie because it's Kurt Russell, and everything gravitates around him. I guess he's like
completely agree. And like I say, when he came back for the likes of Hateful Eight, like he was for me one of the best parts about that movie.
And how much fun was he having in Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
Like, just how much fun was he having in that movie? One of the great Kurt Russell moments of recent years is just the way he's playing that part with such jolly natured, I'm your dad, blah, blah. And then he's just like, what happened to your mum? And he's just like, she died of cancer. And he just like literally comes out of nowhere. But the way he plays it, you just like, it's really, really shocking and really like, you're just like, wow, this guy is.
And again, if that role in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was in someone else's hands, I don't know if it would have been as enjoyable. Like he's got such a gift. I mean, there's an array of really talented actors that have joined the Marvel train, and the movies haven't always been good, and neither of the portrayals. But Kurt Russell, he just, like I say, it's just like he can't do any wrong.
I'm actually sad that he didn't survive the end of that movie because I feel like if there's somebody you'd want to see back in other Marvel movies, it's Kurt Russell, right? Yeah, great.
Sure.
So good. So, I mean, it's a difficult one, really, to sort of pinpoint. So you're saying the 3 to watch would be those.
I would say so.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go with Carpenter then. So if I was going to recommend 3, avoiding the Carpenter because you've already picked those. For me, let's see, I would say probably... Breakdown, love that movie. Obviously, Bone Tomahawk, and probably Death Proof because I think that was just such a kind of.
Once again, he is not the same in any of those movies as one another. Like he never plays. He's always Kurt Russell, but he's never the same in any movie. It's so bizarre. And I think I've realized that the more I've looked into his catalog.
It's because like his looks aren't so distracting. He's a good-looking guy, but he's like rugged. He's got that rugged, good-looking thing going. But he's not absolute movie star like good-looking in the sense of like like a Tom Cruise pretty boy or whatever. But he's so he can kind of go into a role.
Perfectly coiffed hair. To this day, he's always got the perfect coiffed hair.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got great hair. I mean, he's got great hair, and actually, like, long hair kind of works on him. Doesn't it? He could play like you could easily imagine him doing like a Zeus or something, like.
Well, funnily enough, I was going to say, like, because every now and again we'll talk about actors that we think would be suited to certain roles. And I know we did it with like Charles Dance saying like you'd be a good Sherlock Holmes. So I think the only thing stopping Kurt Russell from doing this back in his heyday is his height. But I thought, like, watching his duality in the way he can portray himself, I thought he would have been a great Superman.
Right. Interesting.
But on that same note, we kind of got a taste of it. I don't know if you've seen it, but from Disney's Sky High. Well, he plays a sort of like, it's kind of like a parody of Superman. He's called the Commander. Like, that's his superhero name. And his secret identity, he sells real estate and he wears glasses. But he's clearly having fun with it. He's clearly sort of like a wink at the audience being like, this is my Clark Kent and this is my Superman. So for all intents and purposes, we'll see what that would have been like. But aside from the only downside is that he's 5'9.5", and the cape has always been worn by those 6 foot plus.
Yeah. Sadly, I was never going to be a Superman either.
You can be anything you want to be, man.
Yeah, and the curtains are closed. So, I think that wraps us up on Kurt Russell. He, I mean, undoubted legend. What's your one to watch then? I guess it's Breakdown, right?
It's Breakdown.
And
Absolutely.
for me, I'll go with 3,000 Miles to Graceland. Just because.
Yes, please. I'll be keen to know your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I'll have to. Definitely like to see that. I mean, he is one of those actors where there's so little on his filmography I haven't seen actually, because I will genuinely just go and watch anything he's in. And I've even liked him in his like romantic comedy, like when he did Overboard and stuff like that. But he didn't. He could have just fallen into just doing those, but he just did Overboard, and then he didn't do another rom-com, and it was like. Great.
He did it so well. He didn't overdo it, and he was just like, right, on to the next movie that'll be completely different.
Yeah. Right. So, favourite bit?
Favourite bit.
Yeah. Honestly, we sort of hinted at it because I think it was just such a brilliant performance. I've decided I've got to go with Richard Jenkins because. Not only did he steal this movie for me, I mean, I think he is the best thing in Bone Tomahawk. Yeah. I have seen him recently in a lot of different films where he has impressed me so often. And he's not an actor that I kind of had really noticed, but you suddenly start realizing is a brilliant actor. And
he's been around
very much
for
look
a
forward
while.
to it. Yeah. But because I felt I'd seen kind of some of his key roles, I realized there was one I haven't, and I'm excited to see it, kind of. Because it's going to keep us in the present day. It's a modern horror, but basically I'm going to go with I haven't watched it, which is Let Me In, because I am a massive Let the Right One In fan. And I haven't watched the remake, and I didn't realise he was in it. And so this is a good excuse to sit down, watch the remake. Hopefully, we'll get a good chat out of comparing it.
This is going to be fun. I'm going to be interested. Your take,
because we haven't talked about a remake, so
I like the direction this is going, and I thought I hope he picks Richard Jenkins because the man's an absolute veteran, tremendous actor. So looking very much forward to that, and hearing your thoughts on the remake.
Yeah. Our first Hammer film, even though it's weirdly like modern Hammer film, but Hammer made this, didn't they? So
I don't even think I realised Hammer made this. Wow.
There's a lot that intrigues me about it, and for once, I won't be able to use the phrase "I remember the first time I saw this." So it'll be fresh.
Brilliant stuff. Oh, I'm excited.
Great stuff. Well, brilliant episode. Really enjoyed that. Thank you, Jack. Shout out to your stuff.
Yeah, jackedinmovies.com. You can check us out. We've got articles, reviews, recommendations as always. So get involved in that for my in-depth thoughts, my nerd words. And as always, please check out darkmatterfilms.co.uk. But particularly, please check out Off Grid. And I'm very proud of that film, and I want as many people as possible to see it. So that'd be great. Well, looking forward to Link 10. Yeah, link 10, we're double digits.
Time.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, thank you very much, everyone. Tell your friends and see you on the next link.
Yep, see you on the next link.